to KBLA, and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting. A movement of people, it's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the business is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, our best align.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and White House correspondent, joining you live from the White House, where so much is happening today. We'll have plenty of time to get into news coming out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But first things first, I'm proud to be your host and White House correspondent and always in touch. You can always follow me on social media at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ, and there I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you will never miss an episode. Now, happy Pride to everybody. It's June 30th, which means it is the end of Pride Month. But around these parts, we celebrate Pride 365. That's just how we roll. And so for everybody who came out to all these parades and things, all the allies out there who make a difference, particularly in tough times like this, continue to keep the faith and keep pressing on. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But in our second hour, you're going to hear from a viral sensation, Dr. Aaron Nance. You don't want to miss that conversation with Dr. Nance, who has a fascinating story as a physician turned TikTok superstar. You don't want to miss that story. And we'll also talk about the latest in the Diddy trial. Of course, the case against Sean Combs has been sent to a jury. So the jury is deliberating at the moment. And so we'll give you the latest related to that trial. And then later this hour, I'm going to share with you a very special moment that I had with Reverend William Barber this afternoon, sitting outside the U.S. Capitol to put things in perspective as it relates to this so-called big, beautiful bill, as the president says. But other folks say this big, bad nightmare. We'll let you decide what you think on that. But this hour, we'll be talking with Allen Orr, immigration lawyer and expert, about the latest headlines in the news related to the ICE raids, related to all things on the immigration front. But first, it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, NBC News is reporting that the Senate is holding votes on the Republican agenda bill amendments. This is what we know as of now. The Senate is voting into the night on unlimited amendments to the Republican domestic policy bill and what's known as Capitol Hill as Votorama. You might have heard that Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican of North Carolina, who drew President Trump's ire over the weekend for opposing the GOP agenda bill, he announced just yesterday, that he will not seek re-election for a third term. Representatives Don Bacon, a Republican of Nebraska, and Dwight Evans, a Democrat of Pennsylvania, released statements today saying that they also will not be running for re-election. And so just 20 minutes ago, right before we went on air, Elon Musk vowing new political party will be formed the next day if Congress passes Trump's big, beautiful bill. You might remember Elon Musk came out as not supportive of the so-called big, beautiful bill. And as Republicans are trying to get over the finish line, Elon Musk has poked his head up. He said this evening that he would immediately form a new political party if Republicans in Congress pass Trump's big, beautiful bill to advance his agenda. I'm saying on X, quotes, if this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican uniparty so that the people actually have a voice. Musk has used his social media platform recently to lambast the legislation and call for a new party, weighing in numerous times over the past few weeks, despite an earlier pledge to step back from politics after having clashed with Trump. In other news, the GRIO is reporting that the Trump administration finds Harvard failed to protect Jewish students and threatens to cut all of their funding. Harvard University failed to protect Jewish students from harassment. That's what the Trump administration has concluded after an investigation threatening to cut all federal funding from the Ivy League school if it fails to take action. In a letter sent to Harvard today, a federal task force accuses the university of being, quotes, a willful participant in anti-Semitic harassment of Jewish students and faculty. It threatens to refer the case to the Justice Department as soon as possible unless Harvard comes into compliance. The finding allows the Trump administration to target a wider pool of federal funding for Harvard. Already, the government has slashed more than $2.6 billion in research grants, but a civil rights violation, well, that could jeopardize Harvard's eligibility to, say, accept federal student aid, meaning students will not be able to use federal loans or grants to attend the university. This is something serious. Some folks might even call this sort of next level petty. Next level petty. Moving along, NPR is reporting that murders are down nationwide. Researchers point to a key reason. You see, in 2024, murders fell by at least 14% across the U.S. That's according to analysis by data firm Datalytics and the Council on Criminal Justice, which is a nonpartisan think tank. Official data from the FBI goes only through 2023, but shows similar drops. In Detroit, for instance, city officials say the number of homicides is at the lowest since 1965. And the police chief there says that that's led to a huge difference for his officers. City officials around the country often point to policing as a key component of why crime falls, highlighting how many officers a city has or how they're being deployed. That can play an important role, but crime analysts say the reason behind these drops is more complex and broader. Jeff Asher, the co-founder of Datalytics, said that the number of crimes typically rises and falls by only a few percentage points each year. And despite fewer police officers nationwide now than before COVID-19, graphs of the number of murders over the last 5 years look like a roller coaster hill. But researchers who study crime caution that no one thing causes violence to rise or fall. And so you got to ask yourself, if crime is down nationwide, or murders are down nationwide, then all this talk about the crime and the murders and the violence being created by quote unquote illegal immigrants, illegals, how do you reconcile that? We're going to dig into that and so much more when we come forward. We'll be joined with Allen Orr. He's an immigration lawyer and an expert on all things immigration. He will join us to separate the fact from the fiction when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me! National News, The Consequence. Informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, joining you live from the White House. Allen Orr is now joining us. He's founder of Orr Immigration Law Firm. Welcome to the show, Allen.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. It's just it's getting hot. It's getting hot on so many different fronts, whether we're talking about the literal heat or the so-called big beautiful bill or these immigration challenges that are mounting. Allen, I want to ask you to clarify this. And so there are reports that murders are down nationwide. There are a lot of researchers that are pointing to a number of key reasons, saying it's very hard to pinpoint any one thing that accounts for why, murders go up or crime goes up or down. It's a lot of different things. But part of what we've been hearing coming out of the White House is that there's so much violence that's afoot. You have these violent illegal immigrants that are wreaking havoc in this country, but the numbers don't line up.
Yes, so I think that first of all, that's messaging. That's the message they want to send. We have seen that over 70% of the people arrested don't have a criminal background at all. And then with regards to crime in general, we have found studies from both a conservative group called the Cato Institute and from the Immigration Council that shows that native-born Americans are more likely to commit crimes than foreign nationals that are here, because foreign nationals that are here, even those in visas, know that if there's a problem, they will be removed and deported. So that's another reason why they sort of move away from this. So you find these anomalies that happen across the board where you say, here's a DUI by a foreign national, and you say this happens everywhere. But that isn't statistically borne out in any of the evidence, nor is there ever been, I have to look the numbers again, but I think the Cato Institute also put out a study that showed that it is unlikely that foreign nationals that are here on visas are terrorists, right? We've had one occurrence in our history, but more likely to be a U.S.-born terrorist, a white male, than it is to be someone who is foreign-born. So with all those statistics behind us, regardless of the story they tell, then it doesn't really support it by facts. But we got to remember that in this White House, they're used to sort of propagating a story, and they tell the story they want to believe, and their followers believe them because they want to believe it.
And speaking of stories that they want to believe that sanctuary cities are a hindrance on federal law enforcement. The LA Times reporting that the Trump administration is suing LA Mayor Karen Bass and the city council over the sanctuary policy, saying that it's illegal and asking it be blocked from enforcement. If I'm understanding this correctly, the core argument that the Trump administration is making to California's Central District Federal Court is that the country's facing a crisis of illegal immigration, and that the efforts to address it are hindered by sanctuary cities such as Los Angeles, who refuse to cooperate or share information. Is that accurate?
So the first thing is there's no legal definition for a sanctuary city. So a sanctuary city could be a wide variety of many different things, right? So that's number one. Number two, as a former Republican, they're supposed to believe in local rule, right? Local government, local rule, making local choices with regard to their budget. And immigration policy is a federal issue, right? States don't issue visas. They don't issue passports. They don't give any type of visa status. So therefore, it falls into the federal budget with regards to immigration because Congress controls that. So to tell a state that they need to enforce federal law is problematic in our federalism system just across the board, right? So why should a state be spending their resources on something the federal government's supposed to be spending their resources and their tax dollars in? So what you found in a lot of areas around the conversation with sanctuary cities is, listen, there are 11 million people here undocumented. You're not doing your job, federal government. We have to do these local jurisdictions. We don't determine visa status. So in our community, we don't want these people to be victims. So therefore, we don't care about their visa status if there's a crime or an issue in our community, because we want to be able to help them. And we don't want them not to come to us because they don't have visa status, because that's not our issue. So that's what you see in a lot of these states where they sort of said, listen, we don't enforce immigration policy. We enforce the local rules here. If someone's living within our jurisdiction, then if something happens to them, regardless if they're documented or not documented, they can come to us so that they are not victims of a crime. That's across the board. The conversation in this lawsuit that California did something to stop them from enforcing it is not also borne out in fact. As you see, you have the National Guard and the military there, and they're still having a hard time sort of catching these people that are supposed to be violent criminals. From an economic standpoint, because I do cost-benefit analysis more than I do anything else, is it cost-beneficial for 6 uniformed officers who are probably making $100,000 a year to arrest one lawnmower driver, one restaurant worker, and bring them in for the day to put them in deportation in a private prison where there also runs up tax dollars, when none of it's a threat to us, when most of them were, as you now see, he's trying today, he also, I don't know if you heard it or not, he's trying to make a pass for farm workers because a lot of farms right now in California are having problems and you want to sort of give them a visa. Well, the president can't give visas. That's not an option of the president. That's something also that comes from Congress. So to boil it down to what you asked, no. A state does not keep the federal government from doing their job. A state can only say, listen, with our limited budget, we're not going to spend our resources in doing a federal project. If you want to do a federal project, you do your project, but we're not going to do that. And if you want to come in our communities and do enforcement, here's the appropriate way to do it. The way that enforcement is happening right now has never happened in the past. And the reason it's never happened in the past that way is because it is expensive to have that many people chase one person, or to arrest 2 people, or to arrest 3,000 people. How much does it cost today? They've already expended their budget already. So that's the problem that I need America to focus on. How much does it cost? And let's talk real talk. How much does it cost just on the enforcement alone? Forget about the harm that you can have with your vegetables being more expensive, the restaurants closing down, and the tax benefit of these individuals being removed that were paying rent, buying gas, and going to your grocery store.
I mean, how much of this, Allen, is simply about the numbers, about the administration not hitting its goals in terms of its mass deportation numbers, and so having to resort to drastic measures? There are reports that this month, immigration agents who descended upon just Southern California alone arrested more than 1,600 immigrants. They pledged to deport millions of folks out of this country. They've got a long way to go. And it seems to me, just looking at the numbers, you need, to step up enforcement in big cities like LA in order to hit those targets, no?
So I think they're doing everything they can to hit the targets, and that's a Stephen Miller special, right? He's the one that told ICE that he would fire them if they weren't getting these 3,000 people a day. And even if you do 3,000 people a day, when you sort of between the year, you're still out 1 million people, somewhere around 1 million people, which would make them deport the most people in the history of the country. So what? But there's still 10 million people here that are still undocumented, and none of the people you removed are criminals. So it is about the numbers in a true sense of saying, I'm doing what I told you I was going to do, sort of like claiming that the border enforcement is down. When you've militarized the border, you have the National Guard there and military forces. They're costing the United States billions of dollars a month to sort of be there and hinder our preparedness. So it's an odd conversation to have. And here's where it boils down to dollars and cents, because detention beds were only 44,000. That's all we have are 44,000. They already have 55,000 people in detention centers. And now we have 2 cases of individuals dying in these detention centers. And Tom Homan going on national news and saying people die in prison all the time. Well, people don't die in detention all the time, right? We've had more people die in immigration detention than we had during the whole Biden administration before, right? His total time in office recently died in these detention centers because they have so many people in one cell at one time. So humanitarily, it's not correct. Financially, it's not correct. And as we've talked about before to Black communities, I want them to know those dollars going to detain immigrants to private prisons are the same dollars that could be going to fund your community center, your housing project, your street, or your SNAP benefits or your Medicare benefits. So to say you don't have the money is crazy, because you do have the money. It's what you're choosing to spend it on. And it's your tax dollar going to do this, and you get no benefit from it.
Speaking of what our money is being spent on, the Department of Justice announced plans to prioritize cases to revoke citizenship. Again, just sticking with your sort of cost-benefit analysis, is this worth the squeeze for them? I mean, revoking folks' citizenship. I mean, is this the best use of time and talent at the Department of Justice?
Well, I think so many good attorneys have left the Department of Justice either by choice or by force. So let's start there. Your simple answer is no, it is not. But here's where you go and you start these sort of conversations, because what did Mr. Ogles from Tennessee say that should happen to the mayor that won the election? He should be denaturalized, right? So it becomes a weapon of choice to go after individuals to sort of fight the largest law firm in the world, which is the Department of Justice. So you get up caught spending dollars and dollars and cents of trying to say you didn't do something or you weren't involved in something the whole time that could expend your resources, your time, and your effort, right? So it's really just a game of weighing you down and papering your death. And so what we have seen is even in his first administration, he tried to do this, right? And what I want Black audience to listen to and to know is that this is not about immigration enforcement alone. This is about a purge. There's a conversation with regards to the number of Black and brown people that were in this country that this administration is, you don't have to say it's racist. I don't care if you say it's racist or not. It doesn't need to be, I don't need the word racist in it. You are stopping Black and brown people from having the same migration policies and patterns that other people have. And when you decide, as you did on Friday, to make 300,000 plus Haitian nationals in this country who were documented, undocumented, then you're basically telling me you're catching fish in a fishbowl because you know you can remove those people now. You know where they are. You're going to go remove them and say, oh my God, you've done this great job of removal. And you haven't, right? At the same time, you're telling Americans that they need to leave Haiti. Haiti is still a level 4 in the State Department web list. The UN says that it's a crisis there. And everybody with a reasonable mindset knows that right now is not the time to be returning people to Haiti.
That's right. That's right. And it's also important that our leaders, learners, and listeners know that this is also history repeating itself. NPR is reporting that denaturalization, it's a tactic that was heavily used during the McCarthy era of the late 1940s and the early 1950s, and one that expanded, truth be told, under the Obama administration, and according to NPR, grew even further under President Trump's first term, as you just mentioned, right? And so, this is a tactic that has been tried and true. And so when folks are running around here wearing their Make America Great Again hat, this is what they mean. They're turning the clock back to tactics like this from the 40s and 50s. Ask your parents and your grandparents what life was like in the 40s and 50s. Your parents and grandparents, whether they resided here in the United States or abroad, what was life like for them in the 40s and 50s? And let them telegraph for you what this administration is trying so desperately to recreate in America today. When we come forward, more separating the fact from the fiction on the immigration front and beyond. I'm live from DC with Allen Orr, the founder of Orr Immigration Law Firm. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening. Thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. 3 years after slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars, Will Smith is addressing it in a freestyle on the UK's Fire in the Booth, calling out people who disrespect others on stage. Smith has apologized to Rock months after the slap.
Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable.
And now he's rapping about the incident and his chances of getting nominated for another Oscar in his song, You Looking For Me? The Trump administration is ending deportation protections for Haitians, saying the country is safe enough for return despite gang violence and instability. Immigration advocates warn this could trigger more migration to Florida as Haiti's conditions worsen. And after 8 successful years at HBCU Tennessee State, head coach Brian Penny Collins is joining the Memphis Grizzlies as an assistant coach. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Sun Valley, it's a crash on the 170 northbound at Roscoe. They've cleared it to the shoulder. Delays away from Sherman Way. Montebello, stall for 60 eastbound Paramount Boulevard. It's in the center divider. That drive is slow away from Indiana Street. Also in Grand Terrace, another stall. 215 southbound before Barton Road. Looks like they've cleared this stall out of lanes. Delays are still picking up away from Mount Vernon Avenue. And we're looking at Irvine. This is the drive on the 405. Northbound crowded from the 133 all the way to Brookhurst in Fountain Valley.
Rapid radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies, offering national LTE coverage and no subscription ever. Perfect for instant contact with an aging parent. For a limited time, go to rapidradios.com and you'll get an extra 60% off, free UPS shipping, and add code radio for an extra 5% off.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
With LeBron getting ready for his 23rd NBA season, his 7th with the Lakers, he's in a very unique category. Before agreeing to re-sign with the Lakers for $52.6 million, LeBron and Vince Carter were the only NBA players to play in the league 22 seasons. Carter, a Hall of Famer, retired in 2020. Now, LeBron stands alone as the player who will play the most seasons in NBA history. Beyonce made a $100,000 donation to the Texas Southern University Ocean of Soul marching band. The HBCU band is based in Houston, Beyonce's hometown. Beyonce performed with the band during halftime of an NFL game last season. She did a 15-minute performance with the band on Christmas Day in Houston when the Texans played the Baltimore Ravens. Beyonce's donation will go to scholarships, recruitment, and upgrading the band's resources and technology. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Come to drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
There's nothing like when you get that part from eBay and it just fits. Yeah, the first time. So you can do less of this and get right back to more of this. At eBay, you'll find all the parts you need, guaranteed to fit, at prices you'll love. Sounds good, doesn't it? eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai. He is Allen Orr, founder of Orr Immigration Law Firm, and he has been with us separating the fact from the fiction. We are all still recovering from last week's Supreme Court decision. As a member of the bar, somebody who has served on the National Bar Association before, talk to us about what are you hearing from the legal community in response to the decision by the Supreme Court that essentially says that federal injunctions cannot apply nationwide, that they have to be narrowly applied. A major win for the Trump administration, so much that the president came out to the press briefing room for the second time since he's been reelected to do a victory lap.
Yeah, so let's talk about this in different sort of formats, right? Let's sort of do the barbershop format first, because I think that's the easiest. They wouldn't let a President Biden have this sort of ruling with regards to student loans, but they're going to let this president have it with regards to not even birthright citizenships, but everything out there in the federal realm. So good for thee, but not for me is sort of the common footprint of this is sort of saying, because when Biden went about student loans, the Supreme Court said, oh, no, we're not going to take this issue up, right? When it would have benefited hundreds of people, black, white, across the board with this loan forgiveness program. So that's barbershop. Legally, as an immigration lawyer professionally, it had nothing to do with birthright citizenship or the 14th Amendment. Both of those things are still intact. Nothing has changed for those things. Even after 30 days, someone has a baby in a state that does not, wants to sort of have all this executive order. That baby doesn't get a birth certificate from a state official. That person sues the state official and they wind up back in court, when most likely that person is going to wind up being a U.S. citizen at the end of the day. Because in the dissent, the 3 dissenting justices sort of decided that, this is a settled issue. What are we talking about, right? So on the substance of it, on the formalities of it, for me, which is a little bit different than it, they're different takes because you have to see how it works out in law. But it didn't exactly knock out the ability to do a nationwide hold on all cases if there was a federal question such as being born by birthright citizenship. So it gave a chance for states now, for state AGs to come in and make the same sort of claim about any issue that would cause, 50 different constitutions to be held in 50 different states, to say we need to put this on hold until we get a resolve over it, right? So that's a small window that goes through, as well as this class action, which isn't as easy. It's not an easy thing to formulate, but it's still something where you can sort of go in there and do that. So, okay, let's do the street corner sort of conversation. It's basically a bag of bull, right? It's inconsistent. It's not lawyerly. Amy Coney Barrett making a personal attack on Justice Jackson, pure street fighting. Nothing legal about it. They said they couldn't do it before. Now they're doing it now. Made some originalist argument that the president came out and said that this was for children of slaves. Well, it hadn't been that way in almost 100 years that interpretation exists. So it's sort of crazy and out of the box. And what it does is allow for a lot of spinning, and it allows for something we talked about before. So let's say I'm an aggrieved person in one of these states that does not follow one of these rules, right? Whatever it is. So let's, being reemployed by the government. That's another sort of injunction that was held some of these agencies by injunction. So I can't get my job back because I live in Louisiana, but the guy in New York can get his job back from the federal government because he lives in New York City. Well, I sue, right? So I'm not getting any money. I don't have a job. And it takes 2 years to work its way up through the courts to get to just one decision, and I lose. Then I have to appeal it. Then I have to pay again to go to the appellate. Then maybe I lose again. So then I wind up at the Supreme Court. So 4 years away from the time that I lost my job, I spent all this money and all this time to get to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court says, you win. Well, what did I win? Exactly. Because by that time I'm broke. I'm 4 years older. I'm probably tired, found another job. So there's no restoring me at that point. So it exhausts people who are not sufficiently funded or able to sort of go through the court system. The same thing happens in the denaturalization case. They made it civil cases. So therefore, you would not be appointed a judge. So therefore, all this time you're fighting the energy to go through the court system. So they just make you broke and disenchanted. So by the time you get what the benefit is, what does that do for you? Tons of Black Americans have been exonerated over time. Do you think that exoneration 20, 30 years down the road makes them whole for all the years they got away? Absolutely, positively not. So it makes justice harder for people to get there, and inconsistent policies across the board, and just something that should never have happened from the Supreme Court ever in the history of this nation. Just inconsistency.
And Allen, doesn't it create sort of a patchwork? Didn't the Supreme Court, at least the Supreme Courts that I remember, didn't lean into the sort of patchwork of laws argument, right? But aren't we heading right into that direction where really, depending on where you live, that will dictate, what sort of rights you're extended, what kind of protections you have, and what kind of protections you don't.
That's exactly right. 50 different abbreviations of that. And the reason for all of this, right? The reason for everything that's happening right now is ineffective Congress, right? Congress is supposed to the body to make laws, and they're not doing it in immigration or anywhere else, right? So Congress basically, as you see with this big, beautiful bill that is not a mandate, because if it did, it wouldn't be having the struggles that it is. Congress gave all their power to the executive. The Supreme Court basically started chopping off the branch to give all of their power to the executive, except for the Supreme Court. So it's odd to me that judges will say other judges don't have a right to make a ruling on this when they were once those type of judges, but the Supreme Court can, right? So it basically said, all you district courts, you deal with stuff in your area. You're too small for this. When it gets to the Supreme Court, we'll make a national decision. The 9 of us will. And that sort of speaks to me about term limits, maybe expansion of the court, because the issue is with these lifelong and all the power they're sort of holding right now, They don't have an army or enforcement. So let's say they wait until it gets there and then something else happens. The lower courts can't do anything to help them. They don't have a military. And J.D. Vance already said, so what you going to do, Supreme Court?
Well, speaking of J.D. Vance, and I would also add palling around with billionaires, because we know that a number of Supreme Court justices have had relationships with billionaires that have created a lifestyle for them that they don't like to talk about or report publicly. But the Supreme Court will hear a major GOP challenge to campaign spending limits. USA Today reporting that the Supreme Court is going to take up the regulation of money in politics in a case that could lead to overturning a 2001 decision limiting how much political parties can spend on advertising and other messaging in coordination with federal candidates. Are we watching in slow motion the end of super PACs, because you simply just won't need them? Is this court likely to give the millionaire and billionaire class the opportunity to spend unlimited amount of money as they see fit?
I think, yeah. So part of me, we're kind of at a show, and, whether it's 6 eggs or half a dozen, it's basically the same because the money's already being spent and we're just not seeing it. And you have to sort of track it and see it. I mean, that's sort of like the Elon Musk issue where he was able to fund all of these sort of elections across the United States. So there really wasn't a limit on what he could do and outspend people in these different areas. This would not be the citizenship, the federal case with regards to federal funding overall, and seeing companies as individuals would be the linchpin that needs to be overturned. I don't know if we're going to win on this conversation, but I will say this, something that I've learned from the new Democratic Party in certain ways. Jamie Harrison had all the money in the world and he lost, right? Stacey Abrams had a lot of money and she lost. The Cuomo in New York City just last week had all the money in the world, all the ads in the world, and they still lost. Hopefully we have a smarter elected that isn't about how much money they spend, but what the benefits are for themselves. And that's where I want to spend my time in, rather than worrying about who's getting a dollar and who's getting the advertising. I know that ads reach people, but I think people, if they're aware of what's going on and those big spends that happen, as we saw with Elon Musk in Michigan, and he lost the judge's seat, all these other things, it may also be the same thing that turns people off, right? Why do you got to buy the seat rather than sort of run for the seat? So I'm hoping that we can move in a direction where this probably is going to happen, that the Democratic Party is prepared to say, our voters are educated enough to see it happening, and that's going to galvanize us to get in the streets and to change the way this is sort of happening, and then go back and get all these cases. I mean, there should be a DNC official somewhere with a laundry list of all the cleanups on all the aisles that needs to happen. And when we come back to power, if they come back to power, they do the exact same thing that President Trump did. And it shouldn't take 4 years. You got 3 months to undo all this stuff with the wave of the magic wand, because they've already opened the door for it. So if it was good enough for Trump, it's got to be good enough for the Democratic Party. This sort of scientific and, I can't do this because that's not the way it works. That's gone. That kind of penmanship and brotherly love is something for the 60s and the 70s. We need new leadership that's saying, okay, wait, good for the goose, good for the gander. Let's sort of straighten this out.
I hear you. And speaking of campaign spending and campaign reporting, our friends over at ProPublica, they don't mess around with when it comes to investigations. They found that Kristi Noem, the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, secretly took a cut of political donations. A dark money group paid $80,000, reportedly $80,000 to Kristi Noem's personal company when she was governor of South Dakota. She did not include the income on her federal disclosure forms, a likely violation of ethics requirements, according to experts. Do you think it's just Kristi Noem?
No, I don't think it's just Kristi Noem. And it might be across the board. I mean, there may be some Democrats who also might have some issues along the way, depending on who's doing their campaigns. I mean, listen, she was making $130,000 a year at the time that this sort of incident happened. So $80,000, that ain't a small little bit of money, right? You don't go like, oh, I mean, it's not like $50 or $100 that came from somewhere. You might not know where that came from. But $80,000 in your company that I don't know does what kills dogs or whatever, I don't even know. So it's suspect. And the fact that now she's claiming that, they knew about this and they took corrective action also is suspect. And they don't want to sort of revive the documents. But this is the type of thing that I think is, when you elect people, who have not been trained in the ways of Washington, D.C., you tend to make errors. And the same thing happens for young Black elected officials. You have to be flanking yourself on all sides with people you trust, because they will invite you into problems that you don't need to have because they're not educated on the way. And when you have people, and I'll just say it, Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of them, Bobart is another one. These people are not statesmen. They did not grow up in the world of knowing what the rules are. They don't care about the rules. And when someone offers them money, or they say they offer them a scam, I don't know if they have the wherewithal to realize that there's an ethical issue in it, and that the people that they hire would have an ethical issue in it. All the great political leaders in DC have been fired by the federal government. So you have people who are 23 and less making these major decisions about things they know nothing about. And that's really the problem.
Our thanks to Allen Orr, founder of Orr Immigration Law Firm. We always feel so much smarter after having talked to you, and always appreciate you helping us separate the facts from the fiction.
Thank you for having me.
You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, the quiet part out loud when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent, and the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember,
No warrant, no key. My privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say a thing. Yeah, we all got rights.
Hey, we all got rights.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Hey man, hey, what's up, bro? What's the station you listening to? Oh man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio, KBLA, 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA AM. 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary, and this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education to know. Ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it! Our listeners love us, and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. Talk Radio.
Progressive.
KBLA.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and let me tell you something. If LA is anything like DC today, it was hot. But you know what made it even hotter? It was the anger of everyday people, working people, who came out and stood before the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court. They stood before the U.S. Capitol to talk bluntly about how they might be impacted by this so-called big, beautiful bill. In their view, it's nothing but a big, bad nightmare. Religious leaders protested this GOP tax, this Medicaid bill as they see it, and made no qualms about it. They believe it is going to hurt working people, and it will. Carrying caskets covered with statistics of how many people would lose Medicaid and SNAP in each state if the budget bill currently under negotiation is signed into law. About 25 faith leaders and religious believers blocked the street outside the U.S. Capitol to pray. I was there. I witnessed all of it. If you go to my social media, if you go to Dr. Nii-Quartelai on Instagram, you can see just a really special moment that I captured featuring Reverend William Barber. He leads a group called Repairers of the Breach. I'll get back to that in a second, but it's important to note that a few minutes later, Capitol Police, they arrested all of them, ending what had been a 250-person protest. Inside the Capitol, the Senate was preparing to vote on a sweeping bill that makes tax cuts, slashes Medicaid and SNAP benefits, and scales up border security. The protesters chanted, quote, "You will not kill us and our people without a fight." They took turns crowding into patches of shade and passing out many bottles of water and mandarin oranges in the nearly 90-degree heat. With the humidity, it certainly felt well over 100. I can attest to that. Most were religious leaders, dressed in their full regalia, representing Catholics and Episcopalians, United Methodists, Baptists, Presbyterians, Jews, Muslims, and the United Church of Christ. Other protesters included small children. I saw people in wheelchairs and people with signs explaining why they need Medicaid. Bishop William Barber II, he shared with a number of sources before the protest that religious leaders have an obligation to raise a serious moral dissent to the cuts in the bill, saying, quotes, "This is moral work, holy work. We would be doing less than our calling if we didn't demonstrate and stand up there." He went on to say that, quotes, "We're supposed to be in the public square speaking up for the poor and the least of these. We're supposed to say to the nation, how you treat the least of these is how you're going to be judged." The Reverend Cindy Coleman of Wilmington, Delaware, of the Presbyterian USA Church, said she thinks Congress's spending bill is immoral. 1 in 5 people in her community rely on Medicaid, 1 in 5. And so Republicans have a big decision to make. We saw North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis lay out why he was voting against it, saying in no uncertain terms that this bill, passage of this bill, represents a broken promise made by President Trump. All this talk about, oh, we're not cutting Medicaid. Democrats keep saying that we're not cutting Medicaid. You are cutting Medicaid. You are cutting Medicaid. I mean, just taking a look by the numbers. You want to know how many people will lose health care in California? I can tell you. Senator Warren posted about this earlier today. In California, 2,368,466 people. Are any of them members of your family? Any of them members of your church or place of worship? Any of them a part of your community? Are any of them you? Here in Washington, D.C., we can expect to experience a significant amount of cuts. We see 328,000 or so. What about Florida? Florida, where my mom is from, where she was born and raised. 1,936,421 people. That's how many people will lose health care if this bill is passed. Make no mistake about it. I was just in New York this weekend. What about New York? Over 1 million people in New York will lose their health care if this bill is passed. So what do? You got to pick up the phone and call. Now is the time to pick up the phone and to make your voice heard, to call your representatives, call your senators. Call them. Because they feel the pressure. The president stayed in Washington this weekend, twisting arms here at the White House. He feels the pressure. Your future self may thank you for doing just a little bit more. Just a little bit more to get this thing through the finish line. More on this in our second hour. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.